What things for the temple were crafted in bronze, silver, and gold? Were they idols or mere decoration? Are we building quality Christian lives that give God glory? Let's review 1 Kings 7. Did Solomon also build for himself a house in Jerusalem and a forest house? But Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished all his house. But he also built the house of the forest of Lebanon. The length thereof was 100 cubits, and the breadth thereof 50 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits, upon 4 rows of cedar pillars, with cedar beams upon the pillars. And it was covered with cedar above upon the beams that lay on 45 pillars, 15 in a row. And there were windows in 3 rows, and light was against light in 3 ranks. And all the doors and posts were square, with the windows, and light was against light in 3 ranks. And he made a porch of pillars. The length thereof was 50 cubits, and the breadth thereof 30 cubits. And the porch was before them, and the other pillars and the thick beam were before them. Then he made a porch for the throne, where he might judge, even the porch of judgment. And it was covered with cedar, from one side of the floor to the other. And his house where he dwelt had another court within the porch, which was of the like work. Solomon made also a house for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he'd taken to wife, like to this porch. All these were of costly stones, according to the measures of hewed stones, sawed with saws, within and without, even from the foundation to the coping, and so on the outside toward the great court. And the foundation was of costly stones, even great stones, stones of 10 cubits, and stones of 8 cubits. And above were costly stones, after the measures of hewed stones, and cedars. And the great court round about was with 3 rows of hewed stones, and a row of cedar beams, both for the inner court of the house of the Lord, and for the porch of the house. Who was the craftsman in bronze that Solomon brought from Tyre? Then King Solomon sent and brought Hiram from Tyre. He was a widow's son from the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a worker in bronze, and he was filled with wisdom and discernment and knowledge to do any work in bronze. So he came to King Solomon and did all his work. What was of special importance in his work, and what did he name them? He fashioned 2 pillars of bronze. 18 cubits was the height of each pillar, and a line of 12 cubits measured the circumference of both. He also made 2 capitals of cast bronze to put on the tops of the pillars. The height of the one capital was 5 cubits, and the height of the other capital was 5 cubits. There were lattices of lattice work, and wreaths of chain work for the capitals, which were on the top of the pillars, 7 for the one capital, and 7 for the other capital. So he made the pillars, and 2 rows around on the one lattice to cover the capitals, which were on the top of the pomegranates. And so he did for the other capital. The capitals which were on the tops of the pillars in the porch were of lily design, 4 cubits. So there were capitals on the 2 pillars, also above and close to the rounded projection, which was beside the lattice. And the pomegranates totaled 200 in rows around both capitals. And he set up the pillars at the porch of the main room. He set up the right pillar and named it Jachin, he will establish. And he set up the left pillar and named it Boaz, in strength. On top of the pillars was the lily design, so the work of the pillars was finished. How large was the bath of water? What was the large basin for? He made the sea, or bath, or basin, or tank, of cast metal, circular in shape, measuring 10 cubits from rim to rim, and 5 cubits high. It took a line of 30 cubits to measure around it. Below the rim, gourds encircled it, 10 to a cubit. The gourds were cast in 2 rows in one piece, with the sea. The sea stood on 12 bulls, 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. The sea rested on top of them, and their hindquarters were toward the center. It was a handbreadth in thickness, and its rim was like the rim of a cup. like a lily blossom. It held 2,000 baths. What were the dimensions of the bronze carts, and how many were they? He also made 10 carts of bronze. 4 cubits was the length of each cart, 4 cubits its width, and 3 cubits its height. And this was the design of the carts. They had panels, and the panels were between frames. On the panels that were between the frames were lions, oxen, and cherubim. And on the frames was a pedestal on top. Below the lions and oxen were wreaths of plaited work. Each cart had 4 bronze wheels and axles of bronze, and its 4 feet had supports. Under the laver were supports of cast bronze beside each wreath. Its opening inside the crown at the top was 1 cubit in diameter, and the opening was round, shaped like a pedestal, 1.5 cubits in outside diameter. And also on the opening were engravings, but the panels were square, not round. Under the panels were the 4 wheels, and the axles of the wheels were joined to the cart. The height of a wheel was 1.5 cubits. The workmanship of the wheels was like the workmanship of a chariot wheel. Their axle, pins, their rims, their spokes, and their hubs were all of cast bronze. And there were 4 supports at the 4 corners of each cart. Its supports were part of the cart itself. On the top of the cart, at the height of 1/2 cubit, it was perfectly round. On the top of the cart, its flanges and its panels were of the same casting. On the plates of its flanges and on the panels he engraved cherubim, lions, and palm trees, wherever there was a clear space on each, with wreaths all around. Thus he made the 10 carts. All of them were of the same mold, 1 measure and 1 shape. How were the lavers constructed, and how many were there? Hiram also made 10 smaller bronze basins, 1 for each cart. Each basin was 6 feet across and could hold 220 gallons of water. He set 5 water carts on the south side of the temple and 5 on the north side. The great bronze basin, called the sea, was placed near the southeast corner of the temple. He also made the necessary wash basins, shovels, and bowls. What kinds of things were crafted out of bronze for the temple? So Hiram finished doing all the work that he worked for King Solomon in Yahweh's house. The 2 pillars, the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on top of the pillars, the 2 networks to cover the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on the top of the pillars, the 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, the 2 rows of pomegranates for each network to cover the 2 bowls of the capitals that were on the pillars, the 10 bases, the 10 basins on the bases, the 1 sea, the 12 oxen under the sea, the pots, the shovels, and the basins. All of these vessels, which Hiram made for King Solomon in Yahweh's house, were of burnished bronze. The king cast them in the plain of the Jordan, in the clay ground between Succoth and Zarethan. Solomon left all the vessels unweighed, because there were so many of them. The weight of the bronze could not be determined. What other varieties of craftsmanship was required for the temple? Solomon also made all the equipment for the Lord's temple: the gold altar, the gold table for the bread of the presence, the lampstands of pure gold, 5 on the right and 5 on the left, in front of the inner sanctuary, the flowers, the lamps, and the tongs of gold, the cups, wicks, trimmers, bowls, ladles, and censers of pure gold, and the gold sockets for the doors to the most holy place, and for the doors to the main hall. When all King Solomon's work on the Lord's temple was finished, he brought the silver, gold, and all the objects his father David had dedicated, and put them in the treasuries of the Lord's temple. As we too are building something for God, how should we build? God treated me with undeserved grace and let me become an expert builder. I laid a foundation on which others have built, but we must each be careful how we build. Because Christ is the only foundation, whatever we build on this foundation will be tested by fire on the day of judgment. Then everyone will find out if we've used gold, silver, and precious stones, or wood, hay, and straw. We'll be rewarded if our building is left standing. But if it's destroyed by the fire, we'll lose everything. Yet we ourselves will be saved, like someone escaping from flames. What things for the temple were crafted in bronze, silver, and gold? Were they idols or mere decoration? Are we building quality Christian lives that give God glory? You decide.